million. Okay, everybody stand up on your feet. Stand up on your feet because I am so excited that she flew in Alli Webb to the stage. Louder, louder, louder. And she working for me. You're welcome.
Hi everyone.
Everyone that's in business class got her book. Can y'all wave it? Let's wave these books. We're gonna do a book signing right after this event. You guys, okay, I just wanna tell you another secret. You're literally the first people to have this book in your hand. The book does not come out until November 14th. So you guys get it exclusive, and I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you.
Because I know that my dream, I was at a mastermind yesterday, and the title was, or the motto was, Big Exit Energy.
Oh, it's good. That's a good conference.
That was a good conference, right? And I think a lot of our goals, or mine, I didn't even know what exiting your company was 2 years ago. I just thought you grow and you grind and you hire a team and then you just sit at home and watch your team make money. And like, I never knew about exiting. I never knew about selling my company. I never knew about that until I got into other rooms where, you know, people were like, what? I don't have no followers. I built this business. Yeah, so what? I sold my company for 30 million. I'm like, what? Really? I can give you my followers. You can give me your exit. And I think that as we may dream to have these very large exits in our business, there's so much messy things that happen behind the scenes. And my first question is, a lot of people in this room are told that they have to be the face of their brand. They have to be the face of their brand. And oftentimes what I've realized about being around other founders is sometimes when you're the face of your brand and you sell it, you also sell your identity. Or you also sell your mental health or your love or your baby because you built this thing. And like, how has that been now that you have sold your baby, Drybar?
Well, I mean, it is, and first of all, thank you for that amazing introduction. I mean, it truly touched me, and to be, you know, on a list of women that you want to be around is like truly humbling. But yeah, I mean, I never set out, I didn't, probably unlike a lot of, maybe not, I don't know, I shouldn't project, but I didn't start Drybar with the intention of making a lot of money. I mean, you know, judge that or not judge that. I just started it because I was like a stay-at-home mom, long-time hairstylist, stay-at-home mom, and I love my children, but I wanted to get away from them, you know, and start and do something that I actually loved that was for me, you know, and the, you know, the idea that, so I started a mobile business called Straight at Home, which would eventually turn into Drybar, and the idea that would actually make money and then really make money and become this big empire, like that was not my thinking, you know, and so, you know, Drybar was created from such a organic, authentic place, which is, I bring that up because it is really an important thing to talk about when you're thinking about building a business. Is like, why are you thinking about doing it? And if you don't really love it, and the first thing that you're doing is not for love. I know now I see how loud it is back there. We were so loud. I'm so sorry. It's like super frustrating, right? Just kidding. So anyways, I'm gonna get to your question.
You also talk very soft.
I do?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. I mean, I don't know.
It's good.
It's good. So anyways, you know, so that was like the impetus of starting Drybar. So, you know, fast forward to all these years later, and once the company started to really take off and we knew we were onto something, which was very early. I mean, you know, it was like a rocket ship. I mean, we were just like, holy shit, we're onto something. What now? You know, and so, you know, and the book talks a lot about how we built it and scaled it and grew it, which is, you know, I've been listening all day here too, and it's you know, it's what everybody's talking about. It's all the things, you know, it's like, there are a handful of things that you have to do to be successful. I mean, probably more than a handful, but you know, we did all those things and we got successful. But I think I did, I mean, the company wasn't called Alli Webb, so I was able to like, yeah, you know, and it's funny because I'm playing around with another product line idea and we're we're talking about whether we're gonna call it Alli Webb or not, and literally I had this conversation with my brother 2 days ago. He's like, I'm not sure if we should call it Alli Webb, then you have to sell your name, and you can't sell your name, you know? I'm like, well, it's not untrue, you know?
A lot of people have done it.
Yeah, so, you know, whatever. But my point is that, you know, selling what feels like a piece of your soul, because Drybar was my third baby, you know, it was like Grant, Kit, Drybar. And it really happened in that order. I mean, I got married I had my first son a year after being married, and then, you know, we had the boys, and when they were 3 and 5, we started Drybar, and then selling the business and exiting the business and not having anything to do with it anymore has been a bit of a spiritual process for me. And I remember someone asking me a couple years ago after we had sold it, you know, how do you feel about it? I'm like, I'm good, I'm glad, I'm free, I'm happy, I'm, you know, whatever. And they're like, yeah, but like spiritually. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, oh, I don't know. Why did you have to ask me that? You know, and it really like started this feeling of like, I don't know, and not having control over it anymore. But you know, like anything else in life, it's a give and take. And you know, obviously like Drybar has changed my life in every conceivable way, and put me on stages like this, and given me such an amazing platform. And you know, and it is really, it's a messy mixed bag of emotion of like, you know, not being at the helm of the company anymore. And that was a slow process. I mean, we started Drybar 13 years ago, and over the course of many of those years, I was learning how to delegate, I was learning how to let other people lead, I was learning how to take a step aside and not be involved in every single decision and all of that. So, you know, it's a process that I think is a healthy process. And, you know, I have friends who've sold companies and have stayed more involved. Usually it's only for like a year, because everything changes, you know, but I wasn't asked to stay involved in Drybar after we sold it, which is another book, you know, but that I don't go into it in my book just because it didn't feel like the right thing to do. I'll leave it at that. But you know, but that's the thing. It's like you exit for a lot of money, and that's part of the deal.
Yeah. And so can you take us back to the moment where now me studying exits, which I don't know if they have. I know that it's like year long, it could be 2 years, it could be so many different deals. You could be like right at the edge and you're like, I'm about to sell, and then it's like falls and crash. How was your emotions in that moment of like, oh my God, we're getting to that point? And then when you signed, what was your emotion? Was it like, what did I do? Or like, yay!
Well, I mean, it's super complicated, and there's definitely it's not a linear path. But I also like to take a step back even from selling is, you know, we raised over 75 million in Drybar. So that's just to build Drybar. So we had 150 locations and a massive product line. And when we did sell the company, I think we were at like, I don't know, 170 million in revenue. That was between the stores and the products. But, you know, I want to point this out, and I don't know where Jacqueline is. There she is. You know, me and Jacqueline, you guys will meet after this. We talk a lot about this because she sold her business too, and my friends who've sold businesses, like we have these conversations that I don't think are being had in rooms like this, which is like, I took money off the table when we raised money, and that's where I made most of my money. And most people, and I talk about that in the book, most people don't know about that, most people don't think about that, and most people don't know to ask for that. And it is a real thing, you know, and the more women I talk to, and like, by the way, I also feel very strongly that women should be talking about fucking money.
Yes.
You know, like why don't we
Clap for that.
Talk about like money, you know? I bring up Jacqueline again, because me and Jacqueline went for coffee like a couple years ago, and I was like, how much did you make? What did you make? What was your thing? And because we were so curious. And I'm curious because I'm in this world, and you know, and men talk about money all the time. And I'm like, men freely talk about money. I'm like, why don't women freely talk about money? So I feel strongly about that. But anyways, but you know, and I also feel strongly about saying, if you're in a position and you have a successful company and you have, you know, whomever coming to you saying, hey, we want to invest in your brand, like, great. And I would like to sell some of my equity so that I can take some money off the table. I'm still in this. And this was the first lesson I learned about this, because this was a whole new world to me too. And you know, I didn't know what it meant to sell. I didn't know what sweat equity. I didn't know anything when we started Drybar. And you know, when that opportunity was presented to us, like, oh, you can take a little bit of money off the table, but you're gonna still have enough equity in this brand that you're still gonna work your ass off for us and for everybody, and you know, and you do have a sense of like, it's a really beautiful place to be, because you're like, oh, I can go buy a house now and feel some of the fruits of this labor, but I'm still gonna keep working, you know? And so in that time, we raised 2 big tranches. It was like 26 million and, you know, whatever else got us to around 75 million. And then, you know, when we sold it for 255 million, like, I'd love to say, like, I mean, I was very small amount of money I got from that sale. Because at that point, it was like, we had taken money, we'd sold a lot of our equity, you know, we had lots of private equity, we were like, you know, minority shareholders at that point. A lot had changed at that point, but it was, a lot of that knowledge came from the fact that my brother had worked, my brother's my business partner in Drybar, he had worked for Yahoo in the very early days. It was like one of the first 100 people to work at Yahoo. And a lot of his friends who sold their stock in time made a shit ton of money, like, fuck you money, they're done. And, sorry, cursing.
You can carry.
Sorry.
The pastor left.
I mean, it feels like such an intimate group. I might not figure that in. But, you know, but my brother didn't. And so he just had this like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't get this opportunity that so many of his friends did. And so, I mean, when we were raising money, that was a big thing for my brother. It was like, we need to take money off the table now in case this whole thing falls apart. And of course, we're on this high. I'm like, it's not gonna fall apart. What are you talking about? And it's funny. I was like, oh, you know, what do you think, the world's gonna fall apart one day? And then fucking COVID happens. I'm like, you manifested this shit, you know? You said the world was gonna fall apart. Luckily, we had sold a lot of equity before that all happened. But I mean, and it's a longer story, I don't want to go into the whole thing, but basically the Drybar product division and the Drybar stores were essentially 2 different entities, and we sold the product division for 255 million and not the stores, because we sold, right, the plan was to sell the product division and then we were going to sell off the market. So there's like LA, New York, Atlanta, Dallas, Chicago, whatever. And some of those were franchise and some were company owned. The ones that were company owned, that were ours, we were going to sell off. So if you were to buy 25 Drybar stores as, you know, the owner in LA, and they're all doing over $1 million a year, you can do the math on what we would have sold those for, you know, with like multiples. But then they went to 0 because of COVID. So that sale never happened, which was, again, another book.
Another messy truth.
Yeah, another messy truth. It fits in so many areas. I know. So, anyways, you know, I mean, there's a lot to this, but to go back to your question, I mean, it was still pretty unbelievable and very, very surreal to go through the process, and it did take over a year to close that deal. I mean, I'm sure you've heard the term deal fatigue. That is a real term where you get, you know, you're so close to the finish line, and all these things come up at the end, and at that point you're so tired that you're like, fine, just take it, you know, because you're just negotiating so much at that point, and that's just part of it. But for me, it was, you know, bittersweet to sell it. And, you know, my brother really, that was also a time in my life where, like, my son was really going through a hard time, and he was in rehab, and my divorce was happening, and I was in, like, a little bit of depression. So it was a weird time for me, period, and luckily I had a really strong team, which I know has been a theme here today too, is like the importance of having a great team. And I had a really great team around me that really helped navigate all of that, and, you know, and they really brought it to the finish line, which I really go through this in pretty great detail in the book, that I have my brother have really helped me with this chapter, because he really helped shepherd that deal across the finish line, and it was amazing.
I am so inspired by that. I'm also so inspired by your vulnerability. Because I think most CEOs, we step into this world of, like, especially someone that, you know, has a company like yours that's pretty much public knowledge, like the growth that you were doing, and now you still have to deal with your son, you still have to be a mom, you still have to deal with your own personal issues, divorce, and I think we all struggle with that. It's like showing up as a CEO when our lives are already crumbling. How did you handle that? And what are some tips for someone that is going through tough times but still has to show up as a boss? What are some tips that could help them?
Well, I think, again, it comes down to having really great people around you. And, you know, I've even, like, I was just watching a clip that my team put together of, like, a bunch of interviews I had done, and I say, And I've said, you know, it's like business is business and personal is personal, which I do not believe anymore. I'm like, what the fuck was I talking about back then, you know? But I really thought that was true, you know? But really, in what I've learned is it's so unbelievably intertwined, you know? And if, you want to be careful and you don't want the pendulum to swing too far in one direction, but if you're surrounding yourself with people who like really have your back, then when the shit hits the fan, which it will, it always does, you know, that you have people that you can be like, I need to like duck out for a minute because I'm not okay, you know, and that was really what happened, is that, you know, there were a lot of things that I had to miss in this period of time where my life was really falling apart, my son's life was falling apart, and the office that I had shared with my ex-husband, and my ex-husband is the creative mastermind behind everything Drybar, and I had to stop. We were sharing in a creative office, and I was like, I'm not gonna go there, like things were very content. It was just like, it was a mess. And then everything was happening with my son. I was like, I need to like pull away a little bit, and I had to start missing some things that were important. But my team and my brother and everybody was like, go do what you need to deal with. And you know, and I was still showing up for things that I need to show up for, which that was an important part of it too. Is like sometimes you just have to show up, and you know, and I can remember. I kid you not, I can remember like having to show up and be out front and talk to people and do whatever I was doing, and then like it's the second like I could walk into a bathroom and I'd burst into tears because I was just like, you know, stay on, you're good, and then fall apart, you know, and that's just part of being a human. I was gonna say a woman, but it's just like, I think men feel like that too. I mean, it's like we're human and we all have emotions. I just saw something the other day where somebody was like, men have feelings too. I'm like, yes, men have feelings too. I'm sorry, I'm saying that to a room full of women. But you know, but it's true.
They're like him, they don't show it.
Yeah. But it is, you know, it is true that, you know, it's okay to fall apart, you know, and I have done it several times in my career over the last probably more like 5 years where I've, you know, just literally fallen apart to the floor after doing something that I just had to do because otherwise I was letting a bunch of people down. So, you know, and then just navigating, you know, around my kids and trying to be strong for my kids, yet vulnerable for my kids. And like, let me show you a little bit of what's happening, but that it's not destroying my world and I'm gonna be okay and we're gonna get through this. You know, it's that kind of like, let me show you both sides so you understand like the human piece of it, but then also that you, like the show still has to go on, you know? So it's this kind of tricky tightrope that you walk.
Yeah, well, that's super inspiring for you to be able to have all the public attention, scrutiny, I'm sure, and still be able to be strong, you know, for your mom, for your kids, and as a mom. My next question is, you spoke a lot about owning your own corporate stores and having franchise stores. Oftentimes, with me wanting to scale the bakery, a lot of people have emailed me about owning a franchise of the bakery. And I kind of fight it because I'm like, I already have enough employees that I manage. We'll be managing franchise owners, will be a headache. Or is this an opportunity, you know? If you had to go back and do it all over again, would you have had more franchise stores or more corporate stores?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, we've also started another brand here, actually not here, I mean there is one here. It's called Squeeze, which is a massage concept, and we are opening one in Atlanta. Actually, I think it opens next weekend, which I know, it's amazing. We'll send you guys all something to go there and get a massage. But what's interesting about Squeeze, unlike Drybar, we've decided to completely franchise Squeeze, and exactly why, you know, to your question, what we did not so great at Drybar was we were running 3 different companies between the product division, the company-owned stores, and the franchise stores, which was a fucking nightmare because it was so much, I mean, we just didn't know what we were doing in any of it. I mean, we're trying to run these stores, which we were like, okay at, and now we were trying to run a franchise organization, which nobody knew how to do, you know, so we had to like bring in people, and now, what I now know on the other side, what we all learned was that like it's a completely different organization, and if you were considering franchising, which I actually would make the argument that we probably should have, could have, might have franchised all of Drybar, because the franchisees have money and like skin and like in the game, and they really care more than that manager does. If you want to grow, you may not want to grow if you're being approached by people who want to start a version of your company, which is somebody I was talking to out in the audience. There she is, yeah, about your business. It's like the fact that you're having people call you is such a good sign, and if you want to grow it, you probably could pretty easily. I mean, also, I don't know a ton about your business, but for Drybar, you have to hire stylists and you have to build, it's a massive build out, it's $500,000 build out. I mean, I don't know what your numbers are, but for us, it's very people heavy, because it's a one-on-one concept, which is also not an easy business or great business model, despite all of our success. That one-to-one model is hard. What you have is one-to-many, because you have so many people coming in and utilizing the space, obviously. So if you decided to do that, I would probably do that exclusively. Maybe this one stays your flagship, and then you do that because you just build probably a somewhat small team of people who manage the franchisees, which means that their only job is to make sure that every one of these locations has your signature touch, and it's not theirs to mess around with. That was the thing with Drybar that we learned, is these franchisees had a lot of great ideas, they're entrepreneurs, they have ideas, but I'm like, well, there's a lot of ways to do things right, but this is the way we do it. So if you don't want to do it this way, go do your own thing, no problem, And that was the thing, and our best franchisees were the ones who would come to us and say, hey, have you guys thought about doing blah, blah, blah? And we'd be like, no, we actually haven't. That's a good idea. Maybe we can try that. But we would try it at our store, see if it worked, and then if it worked, implement it to everybody, because you want the same experience from location to location. The franchisees who went a little rogue were the ones who would, I'd walk in a store and they'd be selling t-shirts, and I was like, what the fuck is this? No. So those guys, not so good. But, you have to be really particular on what your and who, the vetting process, and who you're allowing into your brand, and you make it a very tedious process. I mean, we put these people through a lot. You had to jump through a lot of hoops. You had to work in a store. You had to it's we were almost trying to talk you out of it, so that you really feel no, I love this, and this is what I want to do, and I would do it like that. And if I have a suggestion, I'm going to come to you guys and say, hey, what do you think of this? And by the way, we took a lot of those, because they're running a business, they're on the ground, they're learning stuff, so we're open totally, but just don't go rogue and do something that's completely off-brand. And when someone goes to a Drybar in LA or a Drybar in Atlanta, they're having a completely different experience, and that's the a brand breaking down, and that's what you don't want.
I love that how you talk about the experience and being very detailed. And I remember at the mastermind, I was asking, I was like, in the beginning, the bakery smelled like this, and it was like this, and you were like, no, it stays that way. You were talking about how you went into stores and you would be scrubbing the floorboards and picking things out because you were very particular about the experience. How important is that? There's so many people in this audience that have brick and mortar businesses, or that may be shipping on e-commerce, and they may ship the first 1,000 packages in one package, and then they run out, and then they ship it in another package, or they fold it this way, and then they ship. How important was that in scaling Drybar?
Yeah, I mean, so important. And I remember when you asked that question at the mastermind, I didn't really know you yet, but I remember I was listening to Skittles talk about, how important certain details were to her, and they seemed they're not quite, and the team was no, I don't know if this is important, and blah, blah. I was do you hear yourself right now? Yeah, those are what make you, and that really was what was important as we were growing this business, is that there was the attention to detail is what creates the experience, and it's every detail. It's you mentioned, I would go into stores, and if the floorboards were dirty, I would grab a towel and I would start cleaning them, which made everybody very, very uncomfortable, which I always thought was weird. I was well, they're dirty, and nobody here is washing them, so I guess I will. Which is also part of the, obviously the mentality of there's no job too small, and I don't want anybody to think that there's a job I'm above, because I'm certainly not, but it was that attention to detail, and also when you're inside the location that you're a manager of, or you're running, you know, you're this close to it, you can't see that well. So I understand why it happens, but for me, it's like all those details. I think as a consumer, and I'm sure you guys would agree, it's like you walk into a place and it's like, oh, it's a little dirty, and you're like, and then you're like, you just like, I don't know if it's like some neurochemistry thing that happens in our brains, but I'm sure it is, that you start noticing everything. You're like, oh, this place doesn't look, I don't like it. Like, you know, you just start getting negative versus like being so wowed and so like, everyone's so nice to you and it feels so clean and the experience is just so over the top great. You know, your brain doesn't go to that place of negativity. It like stays in this really heightened, like, I love being here. It feels so good. The energy is good, you know, and when you start to allow even one of those things that make you so special and unique to, you know, whittle away, you know, it all starts to like be the breakdown of the brand.
Yeah. What were some of those things that you were like, this is a non-negotiable for me? Like, I know that you had movies and a certain way, how many minutes you greeted them. What was like non-negotiables in creating the experience for Drybar?
Well, it was so many things. I mean, yeah, we always had like chick flicks like Devil Wears Prada and like super like cheesy but fun girly movies that were on the TV, and but more from like the experience standpoint. It was like the way people were greeted when they walked in the door. Like, to me, if you're walking into Drybar, you're probably there for one thing, you know. And so when someone would walk in the door, I mean, I made like a video of it, but that was so ridiculous. And I like made my husband at the time film, like, we're gonna make a video. I'm gonna show people what they shouldn't do and what they should do. Because I would walk into Drybar sometimes and the bartender, as we call it, would be like, hi, do you have an appointment? Of fucking course she has an appointment. Why else is she here? You know, so I'm like, don't ask her that. You know, say hello to her. Talk to her, like, hey, if you happen to know the person and remember their name, even better. But if you don't, which of course it's like the high volume and I get it, but just be like, hey, how are you? How's your day? Like, you know, what time is your appointment is a better question, or like, how can I help you today? Or how's your day going? Like, break the ice first. And it's like, I would always tell people, it was such a big deal for me, obviously. I have a lot of passion around this. It made me so mad. I would always tell people, like, how would you talk to your mom if she walked in, or your best friend? Do that. You know, like, talk to this woman who's standing in front of you, who obviously is here for a blowout. It's all we do. You know, have a conversation with her. Be human with her. Not like, do you have an appointment? I mean, it drove me nuts. And that was a big thing. And then you immediately like establish trust, friendship, warmth, all those things in that 2 seconds that they walk in the door. You know, and then it's like offering them a drink. And if their appointment is running late, telling them right at the front, like, hey, I'm really sorry, but, you know, we are running a little bit late. You know, can I get you anything while you wait? If you want to like go next door and shop, we'll text you, or whatever, you know, whatever is going on. And those are like the non-negotiables for me. And then not to mention the cleanliness of the shop and the level of the music, and then the training of the stylist and how we greet. I mean, the list goes on and on as you go through the experience. But to me, that those first few moments when you're capturing somebody, which is also why, you know, I was just like catching Lauren at the corner of my eye. Lauren worked for Drybar in the early days at our Brentwood store, and I was thinking about the phones, because you probably remember that. When we first opened Drybar, we had the phones in the store, like you would imagine you have a phone in a business. But the problem was, I mean, the good problem was that people were calling so much, and the phone was right next to like the little like checkout, and it was so loud, blow dryers were going, and the music was going, women everywhere. It was like, you couldn't hear anything on the phone, and we'd be like, what? You know, and people were trying to book blowouts, and then there was like a person standing in front trying to check out, and I was like, who do we help here? And my instinct was, you help the person standing in front of you, giving you their money, you know, and then the person on the phone. So we actually had to like, that first week when we opened Drybar, we had to like call people back. I said, just let it go to voicemail, which is also a terrible way to run a business. But what was the other option? You know, it's like, so we let those calls go to voicemail, and we called them back, you know, and that was just happening. Then that turned into a call center business, another business I did not want to be in. We had to pull the phones out of the shops and have like people like answer the phones remotely, where it was like quiet and chill, instead of the craziness that would happen when you call it Drybar. You know, I mean, the lessons are endless. You know, things that you know, and women used to get like kind of pissed off at us that we didn't have phones in the shops, and I'm like, listen, I know. it's like it's like the devil you know or the devil you don't. Like this is the problem we have, and this is the only way we can figure out how to solve it. So, anyways.
So the beauty and wellness, because now you're in wellness.
Yeah.
The beauty and wellness business is so oversaturated. So many entrepreneurs are like, oh, I want to start, but the industry is oversaturated, as is everything else.
Totally.
What makes the businesses that you invest in different? Like, how are you guys, how is Drybar, how is Squeeze able to stand out in a very, very oversaturated market?
Well, it's being unique and special, and that is, you're right, almost every market is saturated. Everybody's doing something that you're probably doing, but how are you unique and better and different than what they're doing? That's always what I say. It's like, imagine, you want to open a coffee shop, there's a gajillion coffee shops, but like the one in your neighborhood kind of sucks. And you don't want the Starbucks, and you don't want this, and you're like, but I want a coffee shop that does X, Y, and Z, and I wish that when I went to my favorite place, they did this, this, and this. It's like, oh, well, there's your answer, and it's really one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give to entrepreneurs is like, look at what everybody else is doing and go do the opposite. And that's exactly how we approached Drybar. It was like, if you looked at hair salons, even if still today, if you look at hair salons, like they're usually like dark, smoky, red blow dryers, blow dryers, like different brushes all over the place. Like they're just like kind of some are nicer than others for sure, but that was our experience. And like we wanted to make Drybar bright and sunny and happy, and I wanted every woman who sat down in a chair to have a very similar experience so that she would be a Drybar client, not a client of Sally the stylist. I wanted that it to be this like collective, cohesive vibe. And that's why I was like, I'm gonna provide all the blow dryers and all the brushes and everything, and you're just, and the stylists are just gonna show up, and not all stylists like that, and that's okay, it's not the right place for you, But, turning whatever it is that you wanna do on its head and saying, hey, this is what everybody else is doing, I'm gonna go do something different, and figuring out what that different thing is that makes you unique. And that's really what we've done with Squeeze. There's a million places you can go for a massage, but we created a highly customized app where you put all your preferences in on the app, you book on the app, you tip on the app, you pay on the app. So when you're done, you walk out. There's no payment, there's no interaction. And we started the first one in 2020, or a little before the pandemic in 2019, and totally was doing amazing, and then it shut down because of COVID. And then we reopened the whole thing a couple years ago, and we've sold 80 locations so far. Yeah, so we'll have 80 open in the next 2 years. Yeah, crazy, right?
You're magic. I need to rub her, but
It's not. I have to say, it's
No, of
not
course.
me. It's not me. And in this situation, I'm sure I have something to do with it. But we brought in, and this is just good for you, good for people that work with you. Like our old head of marketing, Brittany Driscoll, who ran our marketing for several years at Drybar, never been an entrepreneur before. When Michael and I, my brother, were thinking about starting this massage thing, I first of all was like, I am way too tired. Like I don't have it in me to start a business the way we did at Drybar. But I like the idea. I recognize like that this is something that's needed, because like Drybar, I was like, massage is kind of in the same boat of like, there's the discount change, which kind of suck, and then there's the spa, which is too expensive. Like, where's the middle, And so I loved the concept, but I was like, I just can't do it. And so we went to Brittany and said, hey, do you want to, she was already getting ready to like get to her next role, and we're like, do you want to go run this idea we have to do this business for Squeeze? It's the same founding team as Drybar, same architect. Cam, my ex-husband, does all the creative and all that. And Brittany was like, yeah. And Brittany had seen, and obviously she helped us get from like, 20 stores to 100 stores. So she really was a huge part of the growth of Drybar. When she was willing to go and run it for like all day long. And it's just, I point out the Brittany story because she worked for us for several years, and now she's the CEO and co-founder of Squeeze. And she's the brilliance of it.
I love that. And I know we can talk all day and our time is up, but all of the audience is getting your book.
Yes.
And so tell us, and tell the people that will be listening to this episode, why should they get the message book?
Well, I like to think of this book as, a real like peek behind the curtain of building a business and all the things that happen. And I don't think it's only, for entrepreneurs, although it's largely about, entrepreneurship and building your business, but it's just also like, my hope is that it gives people the inspiration or the motivation to go start that new thing, or just go get that new job, like go take that leap of faith and go do that thing that you really want to do. And it's a lot of like motivation, a lot of the things that I've learned, the stories, the good, the bad, the ugly. It is messy, and my divorce, my depression, my kid going through rehab, like all the things that I went through, and to your point, it's like I've been really lucky, and I'm really grateful for the success that I've had, and it's just not all, rainbows and sunshine all the time. I mean, it is here, but it's not always like that in the real world. And I think I have felt this, I don't know, it's like a calling or desire or to give back of like, it all looks one way on the outside, but on the inside and behind the scenes and the under kind of belly of what we're dealing with, it's like, I'm sure there's not one person in this room who's not dealing with something that's heavy and hard, and yet we still show up and we're still building and we're still growing, and it's like this, trying to figure this out and make it all work. It's just, I think the book sheds a lot of light on that conundrum that we all kind of live in.
Are you excited for November 14th?
I am. I'm so like.
Are you nervous that we're gonna read all of this?
I am so
stuff?
nervous. I am, it's like a couple, there's a little bit of pre-ordering and stuff like the book is showing up in places like this, and so a handful of books are getting out there early, and I think Lauren sent me a picture of somebody looking at the book today and reading it, and yeah, she's very focused. Yeah, I did. I asked permission for the record. But she was reading the book, and she was so into it, and I was like, oh God, does she like it? And it is a little like, I'm actually really trying to detach from the judgment. I'm sure some people are gonna like it, some people probably won't like it, and I want it to be a New York Times bestseller, but if it's not,
it will be.
I hope so.
It will be. We always speak good things in this room. Okay, even though you guys are gonna get the book today, will you promise to get it on Amazon? Will you promise to give it 5 stars, give it a great review, write it in your own voice, right? Because she missed bookings and speaking engagements. And originally when I asked her to come, she was like, I didn't even ask her, I asked her assistant, and she was like, she's booked that day. And so she was super passionate about coming to speak to you guys. So you promise, right? I will double book and double buy. You're gonna get New York Times bestseller. I'm super excited. So you've been in the bakery, this is my last question. You've been in the bakery a few hours, and our motto is dreams are baked here. When you were a young entrepreneur and you wanted a community and a sisterhood and you were looking for resources, would you bake your dream here at the bakery?
Oh, 100%. I have had so much fun here. I mean, we've been really loud in the room back there, but it's just like I've met amazing women. I've connected with so many amazing women, and I personally feel really called to do work outside of the U.S. and help and give back. And I talked to Candice, I don't know if she's out here, about she mentioned in our little group that she does a lot of work in Africa, building, schools and families. I'm like, I want to go do that, and I mean, it's just like, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? This just fell in my lap, and I've been thinking about this and trying to figure out how to get into something like that. And then she said that when we were in our little group, and I was like, oh my God. So yeah, I mean, and that's the power of community. And so you're creating amazing community with amazing women. So yeah, all day long.
Thank you guys. Make sure you follow her on Instagram. Go get the book, Alli with 2 L's, Webb, W-E-B-B. Make sure you go get the book, The Messy Truth. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks so much, Alli.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
PJ.